So it's week 23 and it's the opening salvo on Saturday. The early kick-off at Vicarage Road, Watford at home to Spurs. Watford's form has been impressive under Pearson. Spurs, well, they're a bit up and down really, and this match, played in pretty blustery conditions, was a bit of a disappointment. In the first half there were very few chances. Sarr was the most dangerous player on the pitch, on the right for Watford, and he was a constant threat, chasing the line, getting crosses over. Deulofeu started to get more involved. Spurs were pretty disappointing really. The odd half chance to Son. Dele also had a chance, but they were generally second best. But Deeney was encouraging his troops, as a good captain did. But the first real action of real note happened on 68 minutes, and it was a nice piece of attacking play by the Hornets, and eventually the ball was pulled back to the edge of the box where Deulofeu got a shot away, and inadvertently Vertonghen managed to spread his arm out and it hit his arm, and it looked a clear penalty, and that's what the ref decided upon, and VAR didn't overrule, so up stepped Deeney, but it was a poor effort and Casanegro was able to save easily. Then after that really, Mourinho got Eriksson on, and for Ali on 72 minutes, but the pattern of the game didn't really change a great deal, although there was a flurry at the end where Foster needed to be strong to counter the late charge from Spurs, but eventually it ended up as a goalless draw. So final score, Watford 0, Spurs 0. So the second match that I watched in its entirety was at the Etihad, Manchester City at home to Palace, Crystal Palace. Now last season Palace came from behind to win a dramatic match by 3-2 with the goal of the season from Anders Townsend. Well, he wasn't in their side today, or Milivojevic, still serving that free game ban. Ederson was back for City, Aguero up front, and Bernardo joined him. Mahrez, after his great performance against Villa, was back on the bench with Foden and Jesus. Away we went, and Tosun was making his full debut for Palace. He'd been signed from Everton in the transfer window, and Zaha, it was his 200th appearance in a Palace shirt. Early action, and City having most of the possession. Mendy alone on the left fizzed in a great effort, but Sterling was inches wide. It was all City in the early stages. Silva marauding run from him, but Gaeta averted an Aguero threat. And then we had a 30-yard free kick from De Bruyne, a peach of an effort, which hit the upright. That was on 14 minutes. Gaeta managed to deny Aguero from the follow-up from a few yards out. Zaha started to get a little bit more in the game. He was pacey, and there was an instant with Stones where he ended up on the floor, but VAR said no foul. And then on 38 minutes, the first real clear attack by Crystal Palace, corner to the back post. Cahill heads it back across the area, and Tosun, unmarked, headed the ball wide of Ederson, and Palace were at it again. They'd taken a 1-0 lead. A couple of minutes later, Tosun could have had his second. Ederson and Stones got in a right mess outside the box, but Tosun, in his enthusiasm to get to the loose ball, actually fouled the defender, and so a free kick City. Bernardo popped up on 42 minutes, but his shot was pushed over by Gaeta, and so that was 1-1 at the break. 1-0 to Palace at the break. Into the second half then, and Guardiola clearly wanting more from his troops. But to be frank, Palace was still looking a danger on the counter, but he did throw on Jesus to replace David Silva on 64 minutes, and the first chance for Jesus, the Brazilian, went inches wide from a vicious strike when he was put through a few yards out. On 70 minutes though, another City attack and some really nice build-up play, and there was an incident where the ball bounced up off the hand of Radar foul, but although the City players screamed for a penalty, correctly VAR said no penalty, accidental. It came up from his foot and hit his hand. Mahrez came on for Bernardo and he started to make an impact. He certainly was involved early on with a shot that Tompkins got his body in the way, and then a lovely cross from Jesus on 81, and Aguero found a yard of space. He was that much quicker than Cahill in the 6-yard box, and he poked it home, and finally City were 1-1, and they thoroughly deserved it, to be honest, although Palace had offered a stiff rear guard and Tompkins and Cahill had been extremely resilient. And then a few minutes later, a wicked cross from Mahrez, and Jesus was just a whisker away from putting City in front. Kelly offered a nuisance factor, and that was the difference between the ball going in or going safe. But they couldn't do anything much about the cross on 86, pinpoint cross from Mendy, and it was first time as well. He'd been guilty of being too slow getting the ball over. This time he wasn't, and Aguero, unmarked in the 6-yard box, headed the ball wide of Gaeta, and they were 2-1 up City. So Palace, you would have expected their heads to have dropped, but nothing of it. 3 minutes later, great break down the left, Zaha far too quick, and he got to the byline, and his cross forced Fernandinho to go for it with Wickham, and it hit Fernandinho and went in the goal, and that was the equaliser for Palace. So they were back to 2-2. Well, that was about it really. To be frank, City weren't at their best, and Palace thoroughly deserved their point. So final score at the Etihad then, Manchester City 2, Crystal Palace 2. Newcastle at home to Chelsea then, and still a lot of injuries facing Steve Bruce. Lampard had never lost to Bruce up until this match, and they basically were totally in charge of this game, really, from the beginning. Newcastle were optimistic now that Linton had broken his duck, and Almiron, of course, back in some form. But Chelsea completely controlled the first half. But to be frank, they didn't make any real clear-cut chances. Abraham looked a threat. He had a back heel, audacious back heel that hit the bar, but he was a fraction off died, and we got to the break really, and it was a disappointing goalless first half. Into the second half, and Dubrovnik and Ritchie managed to combine to deny another effort from Abraham, and although Chelsea continued to have most of the possession, Newcastle's defence was resolute, and then would you have it, on 94 minutes, a great cross from Maximin found Hayden in the 6-yard box and managed to connect with a header, and it looped into the corner, and the smash and grab had been achieved. Newcastle went 1 up, and the final whistle arrived shortly after. So Bruce was exuberant, Lampard less so, although Lampard pragmatic. Final score, Newcastle 1, Chelsea 0. So to Carrow Road then, this was the bottom of the table clash. Norwich bottom against second from bottom Bournemouth. Well, they both needed a lifeline, really. For Norwich, Godfrey and Pookie was back. He had a hamstring problem that had kept him out for a couple of games. For Bournemouth, Ramsdale was back in goal and Billing restored as well. Early action. Well, it was all Norwich really in the early stages. Buendia went close with a header, and then midway through the half, an astonishing piece of goalkeeping by Cook. The problem was Cook isn't the goalkeeper for Bournemouth. The ball came out of the area and the goalkeeper was stranded. There was a shot from Norwich and Cook averted the goal with a dramatic save, pushing it wide, but unfortunately he got a red card for a handball, deliberate handball, and Pookie stepped up and converted the pen, and that was 1-0 to Norwich. That remained the score at the break. Into the second half though, and Norwich continued to dominate really. There was a half chance for Wilson, but his shooting boots are somewhere else these days. Ramsdale thwarted another Pookie effort, and he was also inspired again to avert a Buendia strike, blocking it with his legs. But then Godfrey managed to get himself sent off for a nasty challenge on Callum Wilson, and so we were down to 10 men each. However, it wasn't enough. A very flat performance from Howe's men. Norwich getting to the finishing line, deservedly so. They won this game by 1-0. Southampton versus Wolves at St Mary's. This was a great game. I only saw some highlights, but never disappointed when I watched Wolves, and Southampton had some good form. It was the 39th match in Wolves' season already, but they had an unchanged side. Neto retained. Saints were also unchanged. Early effort from Traore that went just wide, and then Southampton had a free kick, and on 15 minutes Bednack managed to slip through the defence and place the ball in the corner, and it was 1-0 to Southampton. A great run from Redmond shortly after, and his cross was headed on by Cedric, but this time it was easy for Provicio. And then another great cross, this time from Cedric on 35, and Long connected with a neat glancing header, and all of a sudden Saints were 2 up. That was the state of play at half-time. An early second half action, and Long's header was just inches wide from making it 3. But then Wolves, who are made of stern stuff, they started their fight back, and on 53 minutes Neto turned and his low strike hit the back of the net, so they were back to 2-1. Then shortly after that, Johnny breaking through got sandwiched by 2 Saints players. They all fell over in a heap, and VAR awarded a penalty. Jimenez stepped up, and that was 2-2 on 65. So it was all to play for now. Redmond had an effort from distance to hit the top of the bar, but then on 76 minutes, Traore, who had become more and more menacing, he went on a jinking run, managed to find Jimenez, and Jimenez found the corner, and miraculously Wolves had completely turned it round. They were now 3-2 up. That's how it finished. Great game really. A disappointment for Southampton, but Wolves into the top 6 now, looking great value. So final score, Southampton 2, Wolves 3. To the London Stadium, West Ham at home to Everton. 2 new managers, of course. Moyes for West Ham. Against his old club, Everton, of course. He was there for many years, and Ancelotti now installed as the Everton coach. West Ham put their new signing Randolph in goal. That's been a difficult position for them all season, and Anderson was out, though he was injured. For Everton, Richarlison, Keane and Sigurdsson all out, although the other Keane, Moise Keane, was in from the start. Early action, and West Ham had the better of it. A Zabaleta shot deflected wide, and then Haller had a shot blocked by Pickford's legs. And finally, on 40 minutes, Diop's glancing header found the corner from a Snodgrass free kick on the right, and that was 1-0 to the Hammers. They didn't stay in front for long though. 44 minutes, a corner by Dania was flicked on by Holgate, and Calvert-Lewin managed to get his head to it, and it hit the corner, and that was 1-1. The second half was a big disappointment. Couple of half chances for Everton, a looping shot that was ricocheted just wide from a Snodgrass effort. But to be frank, I think the crowd were probably pleased when the final whistle arrived, because it was pretty cool and whether not too clever, and the game was pretty depressing. Final score then: West Ham 1, Everton 1. To the Emirates then, Arsenal at home to Sheffield United. The referee, Mike Dean, was making his 500th appearance as a referee in the top flight. Not that Arsenal fans were very keen on celebrating it, though, because they booed him. He's had some rather controversial decisions when refereeing Arsenal in the past. Martinelli was up front for the suspended Aubameyang, and Muset started for McGoldrick for the Blades. And the Blades took the game to Arsenal. Early chance for Muset. His header just went over. And then up the other end, a break by Pepe found Martinelli, whose effort went well wide. And then finally, Saka got in on the act, and he managed to set up Martinelli, who poked the ball home in the 6-yard box, and the Gunners went to the break 1-up. Fortuitous, to be honest, but nevertheless they were ahead. Into the second half, and Sheffield United continued to look the more offensive. McBurney had a tame effort on 80 minutes, but finally they got their just desserts. They got an equaliser from Fleck, who capitalised on a poor clearance, and Fleck's shot hit the top of the net and bounced in the corner, and that was the equaliser, and a deserved result for Wilder, I think. Final score at the Emirates then: Arsenal 1, Sheffield United 1. So to Brighton against Aston Villa. Both sides in the relegation zone, or near it anyway. Villa's form has been dreadful. Mopey started for Brighton, and Moy was back as well. For Villa, they had their new loan signing Pape Reina in goal for them. He'd come from Italy in the transfer window, straight in, an injury for Heaton. Early chance then for Connolly for Brighton, but his effort was inches wide. And then a target fouled Moy, and then we saw a great effort by Grealish, who hadn't been in the game, but when he got an opportunity, a great solo run, he managed to evade two defenders, but his final effort just went inches wide. 38 minutes though, Mopey found Trossard, and his strike finds Reina's left corner, and the Seagulls were up 1-0, and that was how it was at the break. Into the second half, though, and Villa certainly became much more creative, and a fantastic ball from Douglas Luiz found Grealish on 75 minutes, and he hit a sweet left foot shot that hit the back of the net, and that was the equaliser, 1-1. Reina was forced to save from a neat volley from Mopey before the end, but the final whistle arrived. Honours even, Brighton 1, Aston Villa 1.